On today's episode of Jason, meet Gwyneth Montenegro, a former paid escort.
10,091 men is what you have under your belt in the 12 years of doing this. I mean, the real question is, how is that possible?
Well, don't read the Jezebel article on me because they're wrong. It is possible, believe me.
She reveals the horrific incident that occurred at her start.
You know, going back to you saying that your drink was spiked, and I remember reading in your book, like you're in the cab and you're riding with these men that are just groping on you. I mean, what do you remember about, you know, even though it was kind of like a fog because of the drug, I mean, what were you feeling?
Stay locked in that seat because it's all happening right now.
Hey everyone, I'm Jason Galka, and as always, thank you so much for joining me. We are back in New York City today with a very special, inspirational guest that's traveled all the way from Australia to New York City this week. She's promoting her new book, 10,000 Men and Counting. Now, if you're not familiar with her story, Gwyneth Montenegro, her story is she is a former escort that has slept with 10,000 plus men while being in the escort business for 12 plus years. And she's here today because she has done a total 180 with her life. And I think you're just so inspirational. Welcome to you, Gwyneth.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. First of all, how are you enjoying your stay in New York? This is your first time.
Yes.
All the way from Australia.
Yes, I absolutely love New York. I've been to LA many times, but my first time in New York, and it's wonderful.
Like it.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Well, it's so great to have you today.
Thank you.
As I said, I mean, we were talking before we started filming, how we connected on Twitter, actually. I had shared your article that was in one of the magazines of your story, and I thought that there was a lot of inspiration behind it also, because to go from that life in the escort business to the life that you have now, I mean, you don't hear about that. So we're going to go through all that today, but first take me back to when, you know, you were first born in Australia. You were born into a very Christian family, right?
Yes, I went to Sunday school every Sunday, obviously, and I had a wonderful family, very supportive mum and dad, and I had a normal childhood. Yeah.
And that's great. And all in Australia. I mean, you were born in Australia, you stayed in Australia throughout this part of your life that we're talking about today. Wow. So, like, I mean, as a little girl, what do you remember about, like, what you wanted to do when you grew up?
Well, Dad was my role model, and he was a very entrepreneurial man. Even though we had a farm, he was always branching out into other things, putting his money away. He was very frugal, so if we had a bad year, there was always money there. So I invested in shares at 14 years old. You know, I was taught to, you know, work hard, and I worked for Dad for $5 an hour. So that was rather good, and I bought some shares at 14, and I made a lot of money off them. I'm like, wow, you know. So he inspired me to be an independent woman, not to necessarily just marry someone and live off them. He inspired me to have a normal career, and I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to make my own money. That was really exciting for me. I just didn't know how I was going to do it, and obviously, I didn't set out to be an escort, but more a businesswoman, and I wanted to learn how to fly planes too. So
yes, and we'll get to that actually a little bit later in the show. We're going to go through your whole journey today, which, again, I find it so fascinating. So at a young age, you did meet your first love, Peter, in high school. What was that relationship like for you?
It was actually quite old by today's standards, like dating at 17. I was a late starter, as it were. And there was a lot of guilt when I had sex for the first time. It was really quite...
you lost your virginity to him.
Yeah, I did, which is quite late by today's standards, but there you go. And, he actually ended up wanting to get married, and it's just like, wow, we're only 17, 18 here. This is a bit young, so it just wasn't going to go anywhere, so...
Yeah, so that caused you to part company.
Yes, it did.
Now, also at that age, like that was around 16 or 17-ish. At 18, there was something very traumatic that happened in your life. You were gang raped. Yeah,
I went to with my friend not long after I split up from this guy, and we went into this shop. She wanted me to get all sexied up, and I'm normally a conservative dresser, and I wore this really low-cut top, and you know my boobs are out, and I ended up, which is nothing these days, how people dress. But, you know, I went out to a nightclub and I believe my drink was spiked, and they sort of left me alone with this guy, and yeah, one sort of thing led to another, and I ended up getting gang raped by about 8 men.
Wow.
And yeah, it was changed my life, how I thought of myself. And to be totally honest, I didn't really have much of a self-confidence anyway, so that sort of made me feel, you know, more in myself, I guess,
Right.
as it were. So that was really, really hard to deal with.
Were you also bullied as a child growing up?
Yeah, I
So
was.
that led to your self-esteem issue. I
Yeah.
mean, what were the kids picking on you about?
I was actually very introverted and shy, so I think that had a bit to do with it. I had a few health issues with my kidney and that, so I was away from school a lot, so I didn't have all that social interaction. So I think that really didn't help. So
No, and certainly not
yeah.
an event like this. I mean, you know, going back to you saying that your drink was spiked, and I remember reading in your book, like you're in the cab and you're riding with these men that are just groping on you. I mean, what do you remember about, you know, even though it was kind of like a fog because of the drug, I mean, what were you feeling?
Yeah, I was just, I was actually disassociated, and then it was just all a blur, and I can only remember bits and pieces of it, even to this day. So
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty full on, and I just felt so dirty after when I got dropped off. It could have been worse, so I was at least grateful I didn't end up dead or anything,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh my
so
goodness.
yeah, it was pretty full on.
So, I mean, you got kind of into the escort business at a young age also, around 21. I mean, was this something that led up to that happening? How did it happen?
Yeah, well, first of all, I did some deportment classes in Melbourne City, and so I learned how to wear makeup and all that sort of stuff. And for a bit of confidence, and then I ended up in the stripping industry, which is, I seen an ad in the paper and dances, dollars, dollars, dollars. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, I'll give it a go. But
Right.
I had a male friend that actually took me along to a club, and I'm like, oh, okay. I got totally intoxicated on my first night, and that was the only way I was able to pull it off. And funny thing is, because I'm so shy, but I was able to be another person. Again, I was able to disassociate from myself, and I made like $1,000 cash on my first night at 19 years old, and I thought, wow, that's a lot of money. So that
Were you kind of blinded by that kind of cash?
Absolutely.
Especially being that young?
Absolutely, and I was so money driven, and probably because of my parents, they're very commerce orientated. And yeah, so I was dancing for 3 years, and I had a serious relationship that just went pear-shaped, and I'm like, oh gosh, you know.
So did you kind of like give up on love, that you weren't going to find the right man anyway, and that kind of led to this too?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that definitely didn't help, and I was actually really lean as well. So when I broke up from my boyfriend, I'd gained a little bit of weight. I'm like, well, damn, I can't be a stripper. I mean, you've got to look pretty much perfect.
Right,
And I'm like, oh, okay. So that sort of led me to, well, I don't really care anymore. So I remember my very first day walking into the brothel. It was just so surreal. I'm like, wow,
Were you nervous?
Oh, yeah, I was just churning on the inside. It was full on. I still remember it to this day. And I'm like, well, you know what? I can always, if this isn't for me, it's one thing to dance naked in front of guys, but this is just a whole new level.
Different level.
And wow, I can always walk away. And they were fairly good to me there. But yeah, it was.
But you didn't exactly walk away though. I
No.
mean, but it's okay though. But I mean, like, how did you? I mean, this is how you led up to getting into the escort business. I mean,
Yeah.
what was that like for you the first time to be an escort the very first time?
Yeah, it was, again, because drinking in brothels in Australia is illegal. Prostitution in Australia is legal, 100% legal.
Wow.
So one thing they don't want you to do is drinking, but I managed to sneak some scotch in. It was my first night. I'm about to bed, a complete stranger, and I was just, you know, I remember he had a shower, and, you know, I took my towel off. I remember standing completely naked, and he's completely naked, and it's like, wow, we're on an even playing field here. So that was kind of eased into it, and then I'm like, God, I need to feel sexy, and I learned how to feel that when I was a dancer. I was able to move sexy because I was able to feel it. So that kind of helped me again. Okay, so let's just disassociate from what's actually going to happen here. And he wasn't like gross or anything. He was just a normal guy.
Right.
And I was able, yeah, because I had a bit to drink, I was able to get through it.
Right,
and I'm
right.
like,
I mean,
oh,
you
wow.
did become very high demand also. Your services
Yeah.
were high. I mean, what was like your clientele? Like doctors, lawyers, even actors?
Businessmen.
Wow.
Yeah. I spent a lot of my time in brothels, and they're taking half your money. So when I got into my mid-20s, I'd been in the industry a while. I'd learnt sort of what men like. I could charge more for my services, and I went and worked for elite escort agencies. I was in the prime of my life, lost the excess weight, and I was looking, really good. And of course, it's all about the service as well.
Why did you pursue it for so long as you did?
The money was, the money was absolutely amazing, and I actually was able to fund, a lifestyle as well. I value my education, so I've been able to fund a lot of that through this industry. But yeah,
wow.
I'm definitely motivated by money. And to be totally honest, most of the clients were really good to me. And I believe...
you've flown all over the place, all over Europe practically for your
Yeah.
services.
Yeah.
I mean, what were some of the things that you were able to splurge on that you never would have maybe been able to do, you think?
Designer clothes, cars, holidays, all about lifestyle really for me. And I was able to, I'd always wanted to learn to fly. Flying is so expensive. So,
So this actually helped you get there.
Absolutely.
Do people ever say to you, there was other career paths that you could have funded, the life that you're living now, that you could have funded this differently? Do people judge you often?
Yeah, I do, and I do get judged often, but we're talking about sometimes I'm earning $5,000-$10,000 a week. I mean, it's so hard to walk away from.
Do you regret that you've done this? Do you wish you chose a different path?
Gosh, I mean, I think we can all regret things in life. I'm not the victim to this industry. I made it work. Like I said, I'm an introverted girl, but it sort of also brought me out of myself, and I think everything in life happens for a reason. When I talk about it, like, I don't encourage women to go into this industry, but I don't discourage them either. It's a double-edged sword because, it's all about the finance at the end of the day. And, I mean, some people go, about the sex and everything, and it's like, well, if you want really good sex, I mean, Brad Pitt ain't going to walk in every day. It just doesn't work like that. So you've really got to think about, can you live with this for the rest of your life? Because to be totally honest, once you've seen one guy, you've seen 200, you've seen 10,000.
10,091.
Well, 10,091
I
to be
absolutely love that you laugh about it now. And again, like, I just want to remind people that, it's very quick to judge somebody for what they've done in their past. But going back, I mean, I myself overcame hardships in the past recent years, actually, where I lost my house, I was almost homeless kind of thing. Not that I have done this line of work either, but I can just relate to somebody that, when you need the cash and this is all you feel like you can do, that's why I don't judge.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but let's get to kind of the good stuff now, if you will. Like 10,091 men is what you have under your belt in the 12 years of doing this. I mean, the real question is, how is that possible?
Yeah. Well, don't read the Jezebel article on me because they're wrong. It is possible, believe me. I actually kept a journal. When I started, it was more for to keep my head together because I knew this was going to be a bit of a rough ride. And I sort of chuckled to myself because I flipped through the book saying, geez, there's enough room to list 10,000 men in there, and it was kind of ironic. So, so it was a coping mechanism for me. So when you're working in a brothel, it's about an 8 to a 10-hour shift. Now, I'm seeing about between 3 to 6 clients a night.
Wow.
That is a good night. For me, a bad night is 2 or 3 guys. These
Wow.
guys are coming in all night and they've got an option of a 30-minute booking or a 45 or an hour. Sometimes they'll book a few hours, but the mainstay of my appointments were between 30 minutes to an hour. So as you can imagine, in 8 hours, you can see, 5, 6 guys in that time.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean,
so yeah, it is. And I was working 5 nights a week. It actually became my whole life.
Wow.
It really did, yeah.
I mean, how do you prepare for something like that, night after night, and everything like that? I mean,
I think, you count like $1,000 at the end of a night and you think, wow, this is, times 5 nights. I mean, you're in for some serious cash.
right.
So,
One of the questions that stick out in my mind is, growing up in such a Christian-like family and going to Sunday school, what did your family, did they know that this was going on?
they, basically a few years into the industry, I met a high roller client and I went around to his house and he had cocaine. And up until then, I'd never tried drugs. Yeah. And I'm like, why not? And it was really good stuff. And I'm on this absolute high. I'm like, wow, And I ended up addicted to it for about 8 months.
Wow.
And not too long a time, thank God. I ended up in a car accident. I nearly ended up dead. And it was a bit of a wake-up call. I'm like, damn, this has got to stop. I can't do this. And I was lying there in hospital and my parents came to visit and I just said to them, I'm not living the life, and I just came out with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was their reaction?
Dad had tears in his eyes and he looked me in the eyes and he said, for those who have sinned, cast the first stone. And he said, I'll always love you. And
wow.
Yeah, it is.
What an amazing reaction.
Remarkable family, just the best. And I believe really that's what true Christianity is all about. It's living it. It really isn't judging others.
Right. That's them just knowing that you were in the industry. Do they have any idea of how many clients you service?
No.
No.
Yeah, they do now, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But they don't, I'm a person, I'm a human being.
Right.
I'm not here to boast about my numbers. I'm about to share, this is a real story. This is the nitty-gritty what life's like in the industry.
Wow. You're living proof that it is possible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty full on. Some of the clients are really rough with you and, you end up really physically sore and tired. And
what has it done to you health-wise overall?
Well, because the industry is so regulated in Australia, we have to have health checks every month. We have blood swabs, everything. So if you've got an STD, you cannot pass your medical, therefore you cannot work. So, and that's what I love about prostitution being legal. I believe in some parts of America it's not legal yet at all, but
here for one.
Yeah. It takes the decriminalisation aspect out of it. So it's good for taxation issues, it's good for health issues, and that's a big thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But after 12 years, you said, this is it. What was the breaking point for you? What said, I want to get out of this now?
Well, I was in my early 30s, and I thought, enough's enough. I actually ended up as a commercial pilot, so
wow.
I learned how to study, and I pursued that. But I had a bit of time out, but due to health issues, my kidney failed and I lost my commercial medical for a while. And then I was back into the industry and I'm like, damn, I've got to be frugal with my money, save up and get out of this industry. You don't want to do it forever. I think it's definitely got a lifespan on it. You're not going to look young and hot forever, really. To be honest.
The realization,
and also the mentally too. It takes a very strong person. You want to give the best service you can to these guys because they're paying your lifestyle. You've got to look after them. You've got to be. They tell you all their problems.
That's actually interesting too. Like, what was like the mindset to be able to go into this and do this night after night? How did you build up this strength that you talk about?
I think I'm naturally a compassionate person. So I'm a very sensitive person and really the wrong person for this industry, but in other ways I'm so right for it because, yeah, guys they don't just see you for the sexual release, they tell you about their life. And I think they miss some of that connection in some of their own relationships. And they just want to get it all off their chest. So you have got to play counselor a bit too. And it can get a bit much, so yeah.
But you're now actually looking for love, though. That's behind you, and you're looking for like the man to spend the rest of your life with.
Yeah, if it happens, fantastic. If it doesn't, that's okay too. I'm not, I haven't got myself.
You're not thriving on it.
I'm not.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to share my message with the world, and I still want to grow my businesses. But if the right guy comes along, I'm definitely open for love, and I do believe in love. This industry has not made me a cynical person.
You've actually had 80 marriage proposals.
Yes.
I don't think anybody gets that in a lifespan either.
Yeah, Daily Mail ran an article on me, and I just hinted to them that I'm open for love, and they ran an article which went global. And so, yeah, I've actually had 2,500 marriage proposals.
Wow.
Of course, not all of them real. But, yeah, I'm not in a rush. I'm not in a rush. It has to be the right person.
Who's starting the next chapter of her life.
Thank you.
No, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about the book. This is your memoir, 10,000 Men and Counting. How was this inspired? Was this your journal entries that I remember you saying you kept a journal. Is this what this is?
Yeah, some of them are journal entries, and I put about the other aspects of my life, how I related with my boyfriends, my parents, and just because escorting's a very isolating, lonely kind of a life as well.
I can imagine.
So, yeah, I put all that into it, what it was like. People feel like they're in my shoes.
Right. I mean, I'm not totally finished with it, but I'm reading it myself, which is how, I got, like, a lot of my questions for you, and just to understand your story. I mean, like, is that one of the reasons also that you wanted to get out of the industry, is because you wanted, obviously, more to have a connection with somebody real and not, and have it be the same person every day? Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. I think it's very hard to do this job and go to work and you're seeing 5 clients a night and then come home, honey, I'm home. It's a tough ask for both them and for me as well.
Have you thought about how you're going to cope if you did meet Mr. Right, with this lifestyle? I mean, obviously you have to go around and promote your book. Yeah. You want to get your story out there. Totally do that.
Yeah.
But if the day comes where you do meet Mr. Right, have you thought how you're going to cope? And, I mean, do you want to be a wife and a mom also one day?
I actually can't have children, so that's not even a part. But
there's adoption.
Yeah, oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, I'm a very open and honest person, so of course the book comes with me.
Right.
And there are I've got a lot of male friends, and I've got a very clear understanding about men, and men are more sensitive than I think media and women give them credit for, to be honest. Right. So I think I would want to be with someone that is honest and has been hardworking. I'll relate to them anyway. So yeah, I'm not too worried about that.
Wow, that's great. Gwyneth, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I love your story. I think you're such a true inspiration. If you'd like more information on Gwyneth, you can visit her website at www.10,000menandcounting.com. You could also pick up her book. You can get it right off your website also.
Yes.
Also, Amazon.com is great for having, quick shipment also. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can also catch up on what you've missed and rewatch your favorites at www.jasongalka.com. Thank you once again.
Special
thank you to Patty Chen and the Flatiron Loft here in New York City for the space today to record this fabulous segment. So, Gwyneth, thank you again.
Great,
we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Ta.